we're going to start off with the Atlanta Hawks. They just had the #1 overall pick in this 2024 NBA draft. They drafted Kobe Buffkin, who definitely had a forgettable rookie season last year out of Michigan. They drafted AJ Griffin. That already hasn't worked out. They traded him to Houston this offseason for a future second. They absolutely hit on the Jalen Johnson pick, 20th overall in 2021. I was a big fan of Sharif Cooper coming out of Auburn. He didn't work out. And then Onyeka Okongwu, while he's a good player, he's yet to start for this team. And then you have DeAndre Hunter and Jackson Hayes and Cam Reddish. Obviously, Jackson Hayes, though, was a Pelican, so he won't be taken into consideration here. I just kind of hate that if you go to like Basketball Reference or any of these sites, they don't really have the trades updated for some of these teams. So this is kind of like the best site that I could do this with. And Cam Reddish did not work out. I mean, DeAndre Hunter, you probably weren't going to draft Darius Garland with Trae Young there, but the pick could have definitely been worse. He has been a good player. Same with Onyeka Okongwu, same with Jalen Johnson, but they really haven't been a great drafting team since 2021. And over the last couple of drafts, I still have a lot of Kobe Buffkin stock. I think this team is a solid B drafting team right now, but if they didn't make this Jalen Johnson pick, they'd probably be, I think, around the C-D grade right now. And the Orlando Magic have had a lot of draft picks since 2019. They missed on Chuma Okeke. He really wasn't healthy too much for them. Obviously, he had a serious injury at Auburn before he was drafted. Cole Anthony did earn a second contract in the 2020 draft. He's been not as good as he maybe was coming out of high school, but he has still been a good player in this league. Killed the Franz Wagner pick. Jalen Suggs, they've developed into a real good player. Obviously, Paolo Banchero has been fantastic, and I think I like probably Jet, Anthony Black, and Tristan Da Silva to be rotational pieces over the next couple of years. And we're going to cut this off with the last 5 drafts. So yeah, we're not going to talk about the 2018 whiff in Mo Bamba, or maybe drafting Jonathan Isaac over Lauri Markkanen. So yeah, this team though is definitely, I would say, an A+ in drafting over the last 5 years. Obviously, they could have messed up the Paolo Banchero pick. He wasn't the consensus #1 overall pick, and he's been phenomenal and is on a great trajectory in this league. They've developed Franz Wagner very nicely, got a contract extension this offseason. Jalen Suggs has been developed into this great 3-and-D guard in this league. Cole Anthony's been fine. Chuma Okeke is a whiff. We'll see what happens with Jed Howard, Anthony Black, and Tristan Da Silva. But yeah, there's some home runs in this recent Orlando Magic draft history. The Charlotte Hornets have obviously made a ton of draft picks as well. In 2019, they ended up taking PJ Washington, and that was a very good pick for them in that draft. They could have definitely whiffed on that pick for sure. There was a lot of bust around that range, and they could have taken like a Sekou Doumbouya. We'll get to him when we talk about the Pistons. They also drafted Cody Martin, very nice second rounder in that draft as well. That is very good value. Even Jalen McDaniels at 52. I like Grant Riller a ton coming out of Charleston. He never really worked out in this league, but Nick Richards was a great second round draft pick. LaMelo Ball at 3rd kind of fell into their laps there. Then there were some whiffs. Scotty Lewis, JT Thor didn't really work out for them. Kai Jones, James Bouknight. There was a couple misses in a row, but this team has been a fairly good drafting team. Like, it's looking like they made the right decision taking Brandon Miller over Scoot Henderson. Mark Williams looks like a serviceable center in this league. I still like Nick Smith a ton. We'll see what happens with KJ Simpson and T. Salon. I'm going to give this team, I think I'm going to give it a B+. Just drafting Brandon Miller at 2, LaMelo Ball at 3. They didn't mess those up, but what's knocking them down from an A is just the whiff on James Bouknight, on Kai Jones that they traded up for that 2021 draft. Kind of a disaster for them, but I do think that the Hornets have done a nice job developing their prospects and their draft picks over the last couple of years. So yeah, I'm going to give them a B+, and you could definitely say it's an A-, and I'd be okay with that. For the Washington Wizards, they had the 9th overall pick in Rui Hachimura in 2019. While he's a good player today, not for the Washington Wizards, and they got, like a second for him when they traded him to the Lakers. So that definitely didn't really work out for them. They took Denny with the 9th overall pick in 2020. He had a great 2024 season, but then they traded him to Portland this offseason. I like Corey Kispert as a ton coming out of Gonzaga. I wish he went to a team that he can contribute to in the playoffs, because I think he could just be someone that's an elite shooter for you off the bench in those big time moments. But he's been a good pick for sure. 15th overall too. They drafted probably the biggest bust so far in that 2022 class with Johnny Davis at number 10. They drafted Bilal Coulibaly 7th overall in 2023 and did just have 3 first-round picks this year. Getting Tristan Vukcevic is nice value at 42. Isaiah Todd didn't work out really. This was a trade down from the Russell Westbrook trade that they got from the Lakers. Vic Krejci worked out as a rotational piece, just not for them. So when you're going to just map this out to the rest of the league, like the best pick is definitely Denny Avdia. Corey Kispert was a nice pick. We got to see what happens with these guys right here. I'm going to give them a C+. Just like the Johnny Davis pick was definitely a big whiff there with some really good players still on the board, including Jalen Williams. They didn't do a great job developing Rui Hachimura. I thought they did do a good job developing Denny and Corey Kispert. hurt, but we're going to scale it out to the rest of the league. They're definitely not one of the better drafting teams over the last couple of years, but they should be picking highly for the next couple of years to hopefully make up for that. We're not going to have a lot to work with the Miami Heat. They didn't really own a lot of first-round picks. In 2019, though, they did draft Tyler Hero, 13th overall. That was a great pick. KZ Okpala, they ended up getting in the second round out of Stanford. They whiffed on the Precious Achiuwa pick in 2020, passed on Tyrese Maxey, Desmond Bane for him. I thought it was an interesting pick taking Nikola Jovic at the time, but it's looking like they are doing a good job developing him. And then Jaime Jaquez looks like great value at 18th overall in the 2023 draft. So with all things considered, yes, the Precious pick was a whiff. I'm going to give this team an A-. I think they've done a good job with their picks. Hero at 13, Jaime Jaquez at 18, Jovic at 27. Yes, Precious was a whiff, but he still ended up being a solid player in this league, and they were able to use him in that sign and trade for Kyle Lowry eventually. The New York Knicks have definitely had some up and down drafting as well. In 2018, it was a weird draft, like getting Mitchell Robinson at 36, great value. Kevin Knox, 9th overall, definitely a bust there. But going into 2019, RJ Barrett, 3rd overall, it was always a consensus number 3 pick. It was going to be Zion 1, Ja 2, RJ 3. They did bring in Darius Garland for a late workout, and yeah, I guess in hindsight, I'd probably rather have Darius Garland than RJ Barrett, but RJ Barrett still gave the Knicks some good seasons, and he was still good enough to be featured in the OG Anunoby trade. Emmanuel quickly at 25 is amazing. Obi Toppin at 8, not a great pick, but he still turned into a fine player in this league. But yeah, they could have drafted a Devin Vassell or Tyrese Halliburton. Jericho Sims at 58 and 21 is great value. Miles McBride at 36, great value. Rokas is probably not going to play over in the States for a little bit. Quentin Grimes, 25th overall and 21 is great value. Keels didn't really work out, and they made a ton of draft picks this year. But honestly, besides, I guess, the Obi Toppin pick, which is probably the worst one we're going to talk about, the Knicks have really hit on their late picks. Like quickly at 25, McBride at 36, Grimes at 25. They're able to draft these rotational guys very late. I think the Knicks have done a good job drafting, in my opinion. Outside of the Obi Toppin pick in the last 5 years, I'm going to give them a B+. The good old Brooklyn Nets, who do have a lot of draft pick capital coming up in future years. Getting Nick Claxton with the 31st overall pick in 2019 was fantastic. Raekwon Gray really didn't work out. Reggie Perry really didn't work out. Kessler Edwards didn't really work out for the Nets too much. But Daron Sharp, 29th overall in 2021, great value. Cam Thomas, 27th overall in 2021, fantastic value. Dariq Whitehead hasn't looked great so far. Noah Clowney looked fine in his rookie year. Jalen Wilson, I actually think has shown some promise. So they really haven't had too many first-round picks and no lottery picks as well in the last 5 years. That will change this season. I'm going to give the Nets a C, though. I do think Nick Claxton was great. Cam Thomas was great. Daron Sharp was great. And I'm going to give the Nets a B drafting-wise. Like Claxton at 31 is great value. Thomas at 27 is great value. Sharp at 29 is also good value. I think they've whiffed on some other picks, but I do think this team is in good hands because I do believe that Sean Marks is a very good talent evaluator when it comes to drafting prospects. And obviously, this isn't going to be the video for like a Boston Celtics, right? Because they're not really picking too high in any of these, at least with their own picks. So in 2019, they had an interesting draft for sure because they drafted Romeo Langford 14th overall. That pick was from the Sacramento Kings, and then that was actually from the trade down when they got Jason Tatum in the 2017 draft. And that was the worst pick out of the 3 they made. I mean, Carson Edwards was, I guess, all right, but getting Grant Williams 22nd overall in that draft was really good. Peyton Pritchard 26th overall in 2020. Yeah, they passed up on some better players, but Peyton Pritchard is still very good value for 26. He ended up getting a second contract. Aaron Nesmith didn't really work out for Boston, but they were able to get a 6th Man of the Year winner in Malcolm Brogdon to leverage him in that trade, and he's obviously worked out in this league. And then a couple second-round picks that really haven't panned out too much yet. We'll see if Jordan Walsh is in the rotation this year. For all things considered, I actually think Boston has done a solid job drafting late in these drafts because they're a very good team, so they're not really picking in the lottery whatsoever. And yeah, Romeo Langford didn't work out. Aaron Nesmith didn't work out for them specifically, but turned into a nice player. I'm going to give Boston a B. I also think I was kind of harsh on the Nets, so I'm going to change them to a B+. For Philadelphia, they drafted Matisse Thybulle with the 20th pick in 2019. He was an all-defensive team member at one point, so that was a good pick for them, even though it didn't really work out in the long term. They got Bebo Paul with the 58th pick in 2020. Isaiah Joe in that draft as well, even though he didn't work out specifically for the Philadelphia 76ers. Tyrese Maxey, 21st overall in 2020. Obviously, that is a home run pick right there. Nothing really too noticeable after that. Jaden Springer, Charles Bassey, those guys haven't really worked out. But yeah, that 2020 draft was phenomenal for them, and they didn't really have any draft picks in 2022 or 2023 either. Yeah, it wasn't great in 2019, but it was still solid with Matisse Thybulle, and I thought they did a very good job in 2020, but haven't done much since. So I'm going to give the 76ers a B+ for their draft picks in recent history. For Toronto in 2019, they didn't have a first round pick, just a second in that draft. In 2020, Malachi Flynn, 29th overall, not great, where they could have got some better players like Desmond Bane, who was still on the board there. Scotty Barnes over Jalen Suggs back in 2021 definitely came with some criticism after draft night, but that pick has definitely worked out for them, as Scotty Barnes was an all-star this past year, won Rookie of the Year from that class. We'll see what ends up happening with Grady Dick. Dick. Christian Koloko looks like it wasn't a great pick. I didn't really love their 2024 draft, but that is still TBD. The jury is still out on that. I'm going to give them a B. Really, their only great pick here has been Scotty Barnes, and it has been a fantastic pick, but we'll see what happens with Grady Dick, and I think that looks like a solid pick, but I don't think it's enough in addition to make this in the A grade. Indiana has been a good drafting team in my opinion. Getting Goga Bitadze 18th overall in 2019 didn't work out for them, but Goga did turn into a nice player in this league. Just needed a little bit more time of development. They didn't make a first-round pick in 2020. Isaiah Jackson in 2021. Chris Duarte, I guess, didn't really work out either as a lottery pick. That is an L for them. Andrew Nembhard was fantastic getting this pick in the Caris LeVert trade, drafting him at 31. Mathurin looks like a solid rotational piece with the 6th overall pick in 2022. I like Ben Shepherd. I like Jarris Walker. They're not maybe an elite drafting team, but I think they are one of the better drafting teams in the NBA. The Duarte miss holds them back a little bit, and they didn't draft like a Tyrese Halliburton. They didn't draft a Domantas Sabonis, any of those guys, but they drafted Miles Turner, and they developed him over the course of his career. I'm going to give the Pacers a B+. I do still have a lot of stock on Jarris Walker Island, so I think he's going to be a solid piece for them going forward. Andrew Nembhard at 31 is incredible value. Isaiah Jackson at 22, also a phenomenal pick. Then Chicago, not a bad drafting team either. Daniel Gafford, 38th overall in 2019. Kobe White, 7th overall in that draft. You got Kobe White and Daniel Gafford in that class. That is phenomenal stuff. I mean, Patrick Williams, he hasn't really developed into what they wanted him to be at, but what would they have taken maybe at this point? Isaac Okoro, Onyeka Okongwu, maybe it would have been Killian Hayes, so who knows, right? Patrick Williams, 4th in 2020. Aida Shinmu, 38th overall in 2021 is a great pick. I still think Dalen Terry could be a solid rotational piece in this league, but maybe hasn't lived up to the hype of an 18th overall pick in 2022, and then they didn't have a first-round pick in 2023. They lost their first-round picks in 23 and 21 from the Vucevic trade, but with all things considered, I think the Bulls have been a respectable drafting team. I think it could definitely be worse, so I'm going to give them a B. For the Milwaukee Bucks, not a lot going on here whatsoever. Really no notable rotational piece until 2022 with Marjon Beauchamp, and I don't think he's really reached his potential yet, that what we think he could have been going into year number 3. Chris Livingston, I think could still be a solid player, but has only been in the league for a year. Same with Andre Jackson. So, they haven't really had a lot of first-round picks, obviously from the Jrue Holiday trade, the Damian Miller trade, and that is fine. I'm going to give them a D. I don't think they've been a great drafting team, but they don't really need to be because they're competing for championships every year. So, for Milwaukee, you're okay with that. I do think they could have made some better picks along the lines. We'll see what happens with A.J. Johnson and Tyler Smith in their rookie seasons, and we'll see if Doc Rivers can turn around the career development for Andre Jackson, Chris Livingston, and Marjon Beauchamp this year. For Detroit, there's been some hits, there's been some misses. You go to 2019, Sekou Doumbouya, probably one of the worst picks outside the lottery in that draft class for sure, and it makes it a little bit worse. It was at 15, the first pick outside the lottery. I thought Saban Lee could have actually been a solid rotational piece in this league. I thought he showed flashes early in his career out of Vandy. You have Sadiq Bey, who's been a good player for them. I didn't like the Isaiah Stewart pick at the time back in 2020. Like I will say, I was definitely wrong about that. Stewart looks great value for the 16th overall pick. They whiffed on number 7 with Killian Hayes. He was definitely a bust. In 2021, they drafted Cade Cunningham. I think they hit that pick. I still think Cade is the best player in that class long term, so I'm fine with that. Jalen Duren, 13th to 22, great pick. Jaden Ivey, 5th overall in 2022. Maybe in hindsight, you'd rather maybe the upside of a Shaedon Sharpe here, but I still think Ivey is a solid player in this league. Asor Thompson looks like a great defender. Marcus Sasser is a nice pick at 25. We'll see how Holland and Bobby Klintman develop as well. For Detroit, there's been some misses with Doumbouya and Killian Hayes. There's been some hits with Isaiah Stewart, with Cade Cunningham, with Jalen Duren. I'm going to give them a B. What's holding them back is obviously the Killian Hayes pick and the Sekou Doumbouya pick. For Cleveland in 2019, they ended up drafting Darius Garland with the 5th overall pick. That was a great job there. Isaac Okoro, 5th overall in 2020. Now, he's a good defender currently. Imagine they just paired up Halliburton and Garland, or maybe they ended up having Devin Vassell and Garland. Some better options on the board, in my opinion. Evan Mobley, I'm still very high on, 3rd overall pick in 2021. Think they made the right decision, and he definitely, I think, was a better fit for them than getting Jalen Green if Houston decided Mobley over Jalen Green. So I think they did a good job there. They drafted Ochai Agbaji with the 14th pick in 2022. He's been not maybe as good as we thought he could have been coming out of Kansas, but he was included in that Donovan Mitchell trade. And I really like the Jalen Tyson pick in this recent year, even though we haven't seen him play an actual NBA game yet. But yeah, getting Evan Mobley at 3, Garland at 5 looks great. They didn't mess up that pick either. I guess I could also mention Kevin Porter. Now, there were some off-the-court issues that they had to trade him, but honestly, it's really good value for the 30th overall pick in that draft. I mean, getting Garland and Porter is very good right there. Okoro, maybe they would like to have that one back, but I think Cleveland has done a good job drafting with their high picks, and you definitely don't want to mess up those. So I'm going to give them a B+. Back in 2019, Minnesota drafted a bust in Jarrett Culver. Jalen Noel, honestly, for 43, that is pretty good value. Getting Jaden McDaniels with the 28th overall pick in 2020 made up for that whiff on Jarrett Culver. And just getting Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels in the same draft, like that is an unreal franchise-changing draft class for them in 2020, and it's paying dividends now. They did draft Walker Kessler in 2022, was a great pick. They obviously traded him for Rudy Gobert. Wendell Moore hasn't really worked out as a first-round pick, though. Also, 26th overall pick in that 2022 draft, a first-rounder. I like Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon a ton. This team obviously whiffed on Jarrett Culver. They whiffed on Wendell Moore, but they've done a great job drafting otherwise. So I'm going to give them an A. Well, holding it back from an A+ is definitely the Jarrett Culver pick. But getting Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels in a draft class is unreal. For Denver in 2019, you got Bol. They whiffed, probably you could say, on the RJ Hampton pick, trading up to get him. Zeke Naji, they did show investment in him, extending him, and he showed promise, but he was disappointing last year. Bones Highland showed promise as well, and they dished him out early, realizing that he had a ceiling as a scorer in this league, it seemed like. I thought the Peyton Watson pick was a head scratcher at the time for what he did at UCLA, but they are developing him in a nice way right now. Christian Brown, getting him at 21, helped them on their championship team. Then you got Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, Julian Strother, and recently Deron Holmes. I'm going to give them a B. I don't love the Highland pick, maybe the Najee pick, even though it's at 22, so it's a good rotational piece there. And Hampton obviously didn't work out in some of those picks in hindsight, but Watson, Brown, I'm a big fan of Julian Strother, so I think the Nuggets have done good for where they've been picking, and that's pretty much late in the first round because they've been pretty good since 2019. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they made a lot of picks since 2019, so their first rounder in that draft, Darius Bazley, didn't really work out. 2020, that draft didn't work out for them either, right? Alexis Pushkashevsky, trading up to get him just was a bust, did not work out. Teo Maledon also didn't work out either, but getting Aaron Wiggins, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, Trey Mann, and Josh Giddey in a draft class is very good. Now, Josh Giddey worked out to start off his Thunder career, maybe didn't last year, and then got traded for Alex Caruso, so still had some value, and I think they still sold him off at a fairly high point where his trade value was standing at. I think Trey Mann at 18 is good value as well. I like JRE, he didn't really work out a ton, but Aaron Wiggins at 55 is great value. Getting both getting J. Will, J. Dub, Ousmane Dieng, and Chet Holmgren in one draft class is also unreal. Even if Dieng ends up becoming a bust, who cares, right? You get J. Dub and Chet Holmgren, legitimate number 2 and 3 options to Shea on a championship team one day. That is an A+ draft for them. I love the Cason Wallace pick as well, and I think they did a good job in 2024. Now, I do think Sam Presti has had his whiffs, but I just think that 2022 draft, just getting Chet and J-Dub in the same class is phenomenal. I think they did a good job in 2021. There definitely are some misses, but I still think they're one of the better drafting teams. I'm going to give them an A, holding back the A+ because of the Poku trade up maybe. We'll see if Ousmane Dieng works out or not. But yeah, they definitely are one of the better drafting teams in recent history. For Utah, none of their second round picks in 2019 really worked out. In 2020, Udoka Azubuike was a terrible pick at 27. I was pretty vocal about that at the time. I didn't really like that pick at all. I thought Jared Butler was going to be some rotational player in this league, just given how good he was at Baylor for their championship team in 2021. Didn't really work out. We'll see what happens with Sensabaugh. Keontae George and Taylor Hendricks have shown some promise, so they don't really have a ton of draft capital here. Obviously, they were moving first to contend with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert at this time. They're going to have a lot of draft picks going forward. Made 2 first-rounders again here in the 2024 NBA draft, but I don't think the Jazz have done a great job drafting, but the 2023 draft is looking solid for them, so I'm going to give them a B-. For Portland, they made a great pick in 2018. Anthony Simons, 24th overall, is great value, but we're not really considering that draft. But 2019, Nasir Little, 25th overall. I projected him to go like 9th in my mock draft at the time. He didn't really work out in this league. CJ LB didn't really work out as a second rounder. Neither did Greg Brown. Jabari Walker at 57, also really good value. I think Shaedon Sharpe is going to still be a very good player in this league. Chris Murray, I don't know how he's going to look, but not great in year 1, and he's an older prospect as well. I still think Ryan Rupert could be a rotational piece. I'm still very high on Scoot Henderson, but this team has been a little bit disappointing, I would say, with their overall draft picks, and they really weren't great outside of the Simons pick either. Like, you look at Zach Collins, and they kind of whiffed on that, and drafting him over Bam Adebayo. And I'm going to give the Portland Trailblazers a C with their draft grade. For the LA Lakers, they did actually a very good job in the mid-2010s when they were so bad drafting. Like, D'Lo at 2 instead of Jahlil Okafor, great pick. Brandon Ingram at 2, yes, over Jaylen Brown, but still a very good pick. They were able to leverage him in the Anthony Davis trade. Thomas Bryant, Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma, late picks as well. Phenomenal job. Lonzo Ball, 2nd overall. Yeah, it didn't work out with injuries, but they were also able to leverage him in that Anthony Davis trade. But looking 2019 on, not a lot of draft picks. Max Christie, 35th overall, but solid enough to earn an extension from them. I still think Maxwell Lewis could be a solid player. player. Jalen Hood-Schifino doesn't look like a great pick with Cam Whitmore, Podziemski, and Jaime Jaquez going after him. I like Delta Connect this year. We'll see if Bronny turns into a rotational player in this league. I'm going to give the Lakers a C. For the LA Clippers, I mean, yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in 2018 was phenomenal, but Terrence Mann, 48th overall in 2019, really good value there. Mfiondu Kabengele didn't work out as a first-round pick in the 2019 draft. They could have taken Nick Claxton, same position, went a couple picks after, so they whiffed there. Jay Scrubb didn't work out. I like Daniel Atoru, but he was a high second-rounder in 2020 when there were some good players that went after him as well. Brandon Boston hasn't worked out really too much. Same with Jason Preston. Keon Johnson was a whiff. Jordan Miller has shown some promise in the summer league, as well as Kobe Brown, even though I didn't love that pick at the time. I do like Cam Christie, 46th overall in this most recent draft. There's some nice hits for them, but there's a decent amount of misses, so I'm going to give the Clippers a C+. For Phoenix in 2019, they made an interesting move when they traded back to take Cam Johnson, moved out of the Jarrett Culver pick. That really worked out for them. Jalen Smith, though, was a whiff for them because Tyrese Halliburton, they needed a point guard, was still on the board. And even if they didn't go point guard, they could have taken Devin Vassell. Jalen Smith didn't work out for them. Jumani Kamara, even though he was in that Yusuf Nurkic 3-team trade, looks like a really good pick. And then I do like Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro from this most recent draft. Yeah, honestly, it's like you value the Cam Johnson pick. Ty Jerome didn't really work out either as a first-round pick for them in that 2019 draft. Jalen Smith was not a great pick. So there's not really a ton to evaluate here. So I'm just going to give them a C. For Sacramento, oh man, if we were talking about the 2010s, they had some horrendous draft picks. Like, let's just look back at this, man. Oh my God, it's so bad. Jimmer Fredette, first rounder. Thomas Robinson, first rounder. Ben McLemore, Nick Stauskas, Willie Cauley-Stein, Skal Labissiere, Malachi Richardson, Georges Papagiannis. Oh my God, and Harry Giles. They really whiffed on so many first rounders in a row until De'Aaron Fox, which is kind of crazy, and then took Bagley over Luka. Okay, I'm sorry, Kings fans, for bringing all that up. In 2019, though, they didn't really make any notable picks. Berzakis ended up on the New York Knicks. John Reese Ramsey didn't really work out in 2020. Same with Robert Woodyard. Obviously, Halliburton was a phenomenal pick for them in the 2020 draft. Davion Mitchell, not as much in the 21 draft. Keegan Murray looks real solid in 2022 when a lot of people expected them, including me, to take Jaden Ivey at the time. And then they had 2 second rounders last year. And I think Halliburton, that obviously has been one of the better picks of the 2020s for them for sure. So I'm going to give the Sacramento Kings a B. For the Golden State Warriors, they got Jordan Poole with the 28th overall pick in the 2019 draft. He was such a vital part to their championship team in 2022. That was a phenomenal pick for them. Not a lot after that, though. James Wiseman, one of the bigger busts of the 21st century. They took 2nd overall, 1 pick ahead of LaMelo Ball in that 2020 draft. Kuminga, 7th overall, looks solid, but Franz Wagner was still on the board. But I still think you're fine with Kuminga, even though Franz is definitely a little bit better. We'll see if Moses Moody could still be something going into year number 4 for Golden State. And then obviously Trace Jackson Davis and Brendan Podziemski were amazing picks in the 23 draft. So yeah, Patrick Baldwin was also a bust, 28th overall in 2022. It's funny, for the Warriors, they've done a good job drafting just outside arguably one of the more important picks, number 2 overall in 2020 in James Wiseman. So I could have given them an A-, an A for drafting, and I kind of want to, but just the James Wiseman pick has to drop it down to a B+. Man, the Grizzlies really started off hot with the years we're talking about, right? So like 2nd overall in 2019, John Morant, home run pick there. Brandon Clark, good rotational piece, 21st overall in that same draft. In 2020, Desmond Bane, 30th overall. Xavier Tillman, solid rotational center in this league, 35th overall, great picks. In 2022, Vince Williams in the 2nd round, but man, what came ahead of that? Kennedy Chandler, not a great player. David Roddy, bust. Jake Laravia, I mean, still could be a fine rotational piece in this league, but for 19, not great. 2023, though, Gigi Jackson, 45th overall, great pick there. So there's been some really solid picks, but yeah, that 2022 draft for them is definitely one to forget, but I'm giving Memphis an A. They've made some fantastic picks here. What's holding it back from an A+, is the David Roddy pick, in my opinion. The Rockets have been a good drafting team as well, in my opinion, in the post-James Harden era. In 2019, they didn't own a first-round pick. In 2020, they got KJ Martin, who has turned into a solid rotational piece in this league, and they got him 52nd overall in that draft. 2021, though, Jalen Green, 2nd overall, still a good player, like not a James Wiseman level bust by any means. Alperen Sengun, 16th overall, great pick there outside the lottery. Like him and Jalen Green could be building blocks for this team if they do extend them after this year. Usman Garuba and Josh Christopher were whiffs, but hey, if you hit on Jalen Green and Sengun, I'm fine with you whiffing on Usman Garuba and Josh Christopher, trying to hit home runs with those picks. In 2022, Ty Washington, just a very rare Kentucky guard, not working out in the NBA. I love them getting Jabari Smith and Tari Eason with Chet and Powell off the board. Maybe Keegan Murray would have been a better fit for this team where they're going right now, but still I think Jabari Smith has a high ceiling in this league, and getting Eason at 17 I thought was crazy value. Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore in the 2023 draft were great picks as well. I'm going to give this team an A. For Dallas in 2019, no first rounder. That was from the Luka Doncic trade up in 2018. Obviously that was fantastic for them. them. In 2020, they made 3 picks. Josh Green at 18. Good value. Definitely Green. Fine rotational piece in this league. And I know I'm throwing out rotational piece a lot, but if you're getting rotational guys, kind of 18 on outside the lottery, like that's good, right? Like it's going to be very rare to draft an all-star not in the lottery, but he's now on Charlotte. Tyrell Terry, I thought was going to be really good. He didn't work out, neither did Tyler Bay. I really love those second rounders for them at the time. Hardy at 37 was just really good value for sure. OMP, we'll see what happens with him, but Lively at 12 looks like a fantastic pick. I'm going to give Dallas a B+. For San Antonio in 2019, Luka Šamanić was a bust with the 19th overall pick, but they made up for it getting Keldon Johnson 29th overall. Great value in that draft. In 2020, getting Devin Vassell at 11 and Trey Jones at 41. They killed that draft. Obviously, Halliburton could have been a little bit better than Vassell, but still 2 great picks there for them in the 2020 draft. 2021, though, definitely wasn't great. Like, getting just Josh Primo, man, 12th overall. I hated the pick at the time. It didn't work out. 2022, Sohan could still be a good player in this league. Got him at number 9. Malachi Branham, still have my stock in him. Got him at 20. Blake Wesley at 25. Maybe could show a little bit more at this point in his career. And then obviously getting Wemby. I mean, that was just an easy pick to make. Number 1 overall in 2023. I'm going to give San Antonio a B. I don't really think they're much better than that, and they haven't made too many great picks. I mean, yeah, 2019, Keldon Johnson, that late's great. 2020, they did a good job. But 2021 was bad. We'll see about that 2022 class, because maybe that one doesn't really work out for them either. And lastly, the New Orleans Pelicans. In 2019, Zion Williamson, number 1 overall to lead off the post-Anthony Davis era. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 17th overall. Good player in this league, just didn't really work out for New Orleans. In 2020, Kyra Lewis, unfortunately, was a bust. Sam Morril didn't really work out for them. Solid player for the Cavs. 2021, Herb Jones, 35th overall, phenomenal job. They ended up trading this pick to Memphis, which I should have mentioned in Santel Dama. Trey Murphy, though, 17th overall, they traded down. Like, they didn't get Zaire Williams, and I should have mentioned that for Memphis. I should have mentioned that for Memphis, honestly. So, Memphis could honestly be dropped to an A- because of that pick, that, like, Zaire Williams pick to trade up, like, take on bad salary to get Zaire Williams. Didn't work out. Trey Murphy, great pick. Like, him and Herb Jones in back-to-back drafts, phenomenal job. We'll see what happens with, like, E.J. Liddell. Dyson Daniels was used for DeJounte Murray, and Jordan Hawkins looks like a fine player with the lottery pick, the last one in the 2023 draft. I'm going to give New Orleans an A- to finish things off. So that is going to be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you drop a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you agreed with or disagreed with, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.